ERi-TV English news broadcast, dear viewers. I'm your reporter Barsaba Taghla, and these are the major headlines for today. Eritrea is participating at Human Rights Council session. International Women's Day celebration conducted in Barintu. China's foreign minister warns of conflict if U.S. stays on path of confrontation. And trains halted and schools shut in France as unions seek to block pension reform. On your local reports, Eritrean delegation led by Mr. Adam Usman, charged affairs at the Eritrean embassy in Switzerland and permanent representative of Eritrea at the UN institutions, is participating at the 52nd session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva. In his deliberation at the session that is being conducted for the 75th time, Mr. Adam Usman said that Eritrea's development strategy is anchored on the commitment to ensure the full employment of human rights and social security of all citizens through an inclusive and participatory process of social justice. Mr. Adam went on to say that the conviction and policy commitment continues to be pursued with higher vigor in spite of unremitting external hostilities, essentially aimed at undermining the inalienable rights of Eritrea for peaceful coexistence with its neighbors in the geostrategic Horn of Africa region. Mr. Adam further noted that the unrelenting harassment of Eritrea for more than 10 years now, through the unwarranted appointment of special rapporteur, stems from and is inextricably linked with the hostile agenda of its detractors. In this respect, Mr. Adam said that it should not surprise anyone that this charade continues to linger in a vicious cycle from special rapporteur to a commission of inquiry, from an oral update to a written report, and then from a simple interactive dialogue to an enhanced one with original purpose to and rational to create platforms to advance their ulterior political motives and agendas. Mr. Adam stressed that Eritrea's inviolable rights for independent political choices and economic development should not be misconstrued and utilized as tools for harassment by certain external powers. Even though the unwarranted hostilities have and continue to exact heavy sacrifices on the country to hamper its progress, Mr. Adams said that in spite of the road bumps, Eritrea continues to make substantial improvements in fundamental rights and the quality of life of its citizens through greater and equitable access to health, education, food security, and other services. The principal focus of the special rapporteur in the last 2 years since the TPLF launched its war of choice of insurrection in November 2020 has veered from its stipulated mandate to mendaciously accuse Eritrea to serve greater agendas, Mr. Adam added. Mr. Adam underlined that Eritrea will persist in its development agenda in spite of the relentless and unwarranted harassment by certain powers. At the session, out of the 22 countries that responded to the report presented regarding Eritrea, 14 countries called for an end to the unwarranted hostilities against Eritrea and strengthen their positive engagement. The International Women's Day 8 March celebration has been colorfully conducted in Barintu on 5 March at regional level and under the theme Eritrean Women Unwavering and Undertaking Sweats to Cultivate. Speaking at the occasion, Ambassador Mohammed Ali Hurri, Governor of Kashbarka region, explaining the role of Eritrean women in the various stages of the history of the country, called for reinforced participation of women in all sectors of development programs. Ms. Yehdaga Yohannes, head of the National Union of Eritrean Women branch in the region, on her part pointing out that ensuring the active participation of women in the national affairs is the fundamental measurement of success, called for strengthened participation for better outcome. At the event, heads of national associations delivered messages of solidarity. The occasion was highlighted by cultural and artistic programs depicting the day. In the same vein, members of the National Union of Eritrean Women branch in the Central Region voluntarily donated 250 units of blood in connection with International Women's Day. Expressing satisfaction for voluntarily donating their blood with a view to save lives with their renewable blood, the members called on others to follow their noble example. On your last local report, nationals in Australia, Canada and the US enthusiastically celebrated International Women's Day. At the celebratory event in Melbourne, Australia, Ms. Berheen Oqbai, head of the union branch, explaining the role and participation of Eritrean women in the national affairs, expressed readiness to strengthen participation. Mr. Maharita Khaste, Eritrea's Consul General in Australia, on his part called for strengthening organizational capacity and participation in the implementation of national development programs. At the event, head of national associations delivered messages of solidarity. Likewise, nationals in Winnipeg, Canada, celebrated International Women's Day under the theme Eritrean Women Unwavering and Undertaking Sweats to Cultivate. Speaking at the occasion, Ms. Nebiat Chawai, chairperson of the preparatory committee commanding the participation of the Eritrean women in the national affairs, called for transferring the noble societal values to the young generation. Similarly, nationals in Cincinnati, the U.S. celebrated International Women's Day with patriotic zeal. Dear viewers, that was all with your domestic news. Coming up will be international reports. Do stay with us. Welcome back. China's foreign minister has blamed the United States for rising tensions between Washington and Beijing and said that if the U.S. does not change path, no number of preventive measures could avert a confrontation. The U.S. had engaged in suppression and containment of China rather than fair competition, and such provocation could not be tolerated indefinitely, the foreign minister told reporters at a news conference in Beijing on Tuesday on the sidelines of an annual parliamentary meeting. The foreign minister says that the United States' perception and views of China are seriously distorted, adding that Washington regards China as its primary rival and the most consequential geopolitical challenge. The U.S., he continued, always talks about a rule-based world order, but then does not follow those rules, he said, using the example of two athletes competing in a race where one side, instead of focusing on giving one's best, always tries to trip up the other runner. The foreign minister also noted that the U.S. says it is establishing protective barriers to ensure there is no conflict with China. But in practice, this means that Beijing is not supposed to respond with words or actions when slandered or attacked, he says. The foreign minister's comments came after China's President Xi Jinping condemned what he described as the U.S.-led suppression of China in a speech to delegates on Monday attending China's annual parliamentary session. On your final report, most trains came to a halt, oil refineries were blocked and power production reduced in France on Tuesday as unions organized the sixth day of nationwide strikes against President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plans. Opinion polls have for weeks shown that a majority of voters rejected the reform, which would raise the pension age by 2 years to 64, among other measures. But the government intends to stand its ground and carry out the plans that it says are essential to ensure the pension system does not go bust. Unions said that they would increase pressure to try and convince lawmakers not to vote for the reforms, adding that rolling strikes, particularly at oil refineries and on the railways, could be prolonged over several days. Rallies are planned across France after more than 1.27 million people took part in previous protests on January 31st. On Tuesday, there were reports of students blocking schools, while BFM TV showed footage of workers abandoning cars on the side of the road near Aymen in the northern France, and others blocked access to an industrial zone. While Macron's camp does not have an absolute majority in parliament, it can count on the support of at least part of the conservative less Republicans. You're still watching us on ERi-TV, dear viewers, and now recap of the major headlines. Eritrea is participating at Human Rights Council session. International Women's Day celebration conducted in Barentu. China's foreign minister warns of conflict if U.S. stays on path of confrontation. And trains halted and schools shut in France as unions seek to block pension reform. Dear viewers, that was it for today. Thanks for watching.